Gold speculation reaches a record low. Could this be the perfect time to start acquiring gold assets? Amir Nani, top resource entrepreneur and recipient of Casey's 10-Bagger Club, thinks so. In an environment where nearly 70% of TSX venture mining companies have a market cap of less than $5 million, Amir's new gold company, Brazil Resources, just raised $6.4 million through an oversubscribed private placement, with the biggest buyers being management, Doug Casey of Casey Capital Strategies, and legendary investor Rick Rule. BRI also just completed the acquisition of Brazilian Gold Corp, which will more than double their in-ground gold minerals. Brazil Resources seizing the opportunity. Greetings and thank you for joining me at FutureMoneyTrends.com. I'm here at the Casey Summit with John Mauldin of Mauldin Economics. John, thank you so much for joining us.
Good to be here, sir.
So, John, first of all, I'm happy to be in Texas. I know you're a Texan. And I noticed the economy feels different here. People are busy. There's a housing boom going on. I mean, when you travel the world, is that what kind of makes you optimistic? Because, I mean, you can go to one area and be depressed if you're in Toledo, Ohio. But you come to Austin, and it's like, man, America is thriving.
Actually, Toledo's booming right now.
Is it?
It is because of shale oil. It's their part. That's part of that Marcellus play. So Toledo and that whole Akron, they're now producing steel again, but it's now steel pipe. And the jobless rate in Ohio is now underneath the national average as opposed to being before it and high-paying jobs because they're putting holes in the ground.
Yeah. So the reason I bring that up is because we're at the KC Summit. Gold bugs, big concern about inflation and deflation, and overall societal collapse.
Right.
So you are left here being the optimist in the room.
I am the optimist in the room.
Why should we be optimistic about America, the U.S., and the U.S. dollar?
Well, I guess it depends on your time horizon. If your time horizon is the next 6 months or the next year or the next 2 years, there's reasons to be pessimistic. If your time horizon's 20 years, I'm a wild-eyed optimist. Because one of the things that will happen, not just in the U.S., but in Europe, in Japan, in China, the imbalances that have been created by government are going to have to be restructured. I mean, if you don't, you collapse. Okay. We've had financial collapses before, but that didn't change the structure and the rate of human progress. We're seeing technology now at the elbow of the curve. It's an accelerating curve, and as human beings, we don't understand how rapid this change is going to be. We're going to see more change in the next 10, 15, 20 years than we saw in all of the last century combined. It's going to be compressed. The things that we will take for granted in 20 years, we'll take for granted that, of course, you don't die from cancer, that you can get arteriosclerosis will be things of the past, viruses will be gone. I mean, we'll look back on 2014 as this dark age of medical technology. Can you really lived with this? Yeah. Just like our kids say, Dad, you really didn't have a cell phone growing up, because they're used to being connected. I mean, you've got young kids, they already can play with the iPad, they know what to do. They do it intuitively.
My 4-year-old asked me we were in the grocery store, he pointed to a newspaper and said, "What's that?"
Yes.
And I literally told him, I said, it's something people used to read before with computers.
Yeah. So. I mean, I now carry my library in my briefcase, whereas I used to have to choose which 2 or 3 books am I going to take on my road trips. Now, I've got, an abundance of books, too many almost. I feel guilty about not reading. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. The rapidity of mobile communications, the Internet of Things, robotics, advanced drones and communication systems, artificial intelligence, the world shifting to solar or other forms of renewable digital type energy. I mean, we're living, this is San Antonio. Austin's up the road. Permian Basin's not too far off to our left. in 20 years, 30 years, that natural gas revolution will be receding because we will have been replacing it with digital energy, which is solar and other forms of energy that will come along. We're getting ready to get into a world of abundance. Now, it's going to be a race between how much wealth can governments destroy in the process of how much wealth can humanity and our ingenuity create. And it's not altogether clear who's going to win in what countries. Some countries are going to fall behind, and that's a problem for them, because in an age of accelerating change, as you're doubling and you're doubling and you're doubling again, if you fall behind a couple doubles, you don't catch up. And even if you're growing, you're getting further behind because they're further down the curve than you are.
Now, with creative destruction, like what you're talking about essentially is this huge advancement in technology. And I think of Blockbuster Video, and to this morning we were talking about, we drove by Barnes & Noble's, like, I can't believe they're still around.
Yeah.
And
God bless Barnes & Noble. They sell a lot of my books now.
Well, it's just like what you're talking about. It seems like, yes, it all sounds great, a life of abundance, maybe even more leisure for humans. But it also seems like a lot of jobs. From your understanding and analysis of the economy, when technology advances like this, what is the net gain or loss for jobs for people?
Well, it'll be a net gain over time. Let's go back to 1870. The number one job was, 80% of the people worked on the farms. By 1900, the number one job was personal servant. There was that much of a shift because of the McCormick Reaper. I mean, people started moving off the farms. Today, less than 2% of the people work on farms. Yeah. And we're feeding not just the country, we're feeding the world. I mean, I think it's not much more than 1%. It's closer to 1 than 2. So, I mean, but those people found jobs. And that's what technology does. It's going to replace, first of all, it replaced muscle power, and now it's replacing mental power. We're augmenting ourselves. We're going to have at our fingertips, at our phone tips, probably wired into our minds, access to massive amounts of information and data and skill sets. You'll be able to ask your computer, how do I do X? And that computer will go out, that computer that you're wearing, that'll be part of you, will go out and access 100 different expert systems and come back and say, here's what you need, sir. Here's how you do that. And that power is going to be in the hands of children who are going to only be limited by their imagination. And we know that we kids have a lot of imagination.
I want to close off with a question about Texas. We're in San Antonio, and I recently just moved to Texas. I know you are from Texas. And Texas,
3 generations.
Man, this economy is just booming. And, to anybody who's from the Socialist Republic of California, where I came from, it snows all year here, and it is freezing. Please stay away from Texas.
One of the things that I was laughing about, because we've had a remarkably mild summer. The weather's really been good. It was good for the last 2 winters. And if the weather was somehow or another changed, this was what we get year round, and it's not. I'm telling you, it's lousy. Don't come. I mean, exactly. Our biggest problem in Texas would be tax refugees from San Diego wanting to come here.
Yeah.
I mean, if I could figure out how to only let Republicans in the border or something, I would do that. Well, I don't want to become like them.
My question is, what doesn't logically make sense as like somebody who's coming from Southern California? Okay, so the Texans, from those part, at least the people I'm talking with, they have great incomes. But instead of having $750,000 homes, their homes are like $200,000 to $300,000, maybe $400,000, even for a really nice home.
Yeah.
What's the deal with that?
I have a fabulous apartment in downtown Dallas. I couldn't even own a bedroom in New York for what I own in Dallas. Yeah. And
So do you see Texas home prices rising for the next decade or so?
No. we have land. There's no constraint on, moving out. That's one of the reasons that Texas didn't participate in the last home bubble.
Yeah.
To some degree, Austin did, because there was a limited amount of land because of their regulations. But the rest of the state, they just built further out. They built more freeways, more roads. And so we didn't get a housing price bubble. Now, housing prices have gone up in, like downtown areas and places where people want to live, urban environments. But we're not going to see I don't see us becoming Southern California.
Last question, and this is more for fun. Do you think Governor Perry is more likely to be secured by the Secret Service or the federal penitentiary?
Neither. This whole thing that you just have to understand inside Texas politics, and it is such a political junkie. Austin is a hotbed of liberal radicalism. They hate Governor Perry, and in Texas, they got in a pissing contest, and one of them said, "Okay, this is what we'll do." It's not the first time they've done that to Texas governors.
Yeah.
Travis County DAs do that, and I like Rick Perry. He was a great governor, but I don't think he's going to wear well on the national stage.
Do you think Rand Paul has a chance? I know I keep giving him with the last question.
I would normally say no. And now I have to put an asterisk beside that. And I would normally say no because he's too young and he hasn't really done the national spotlight thing yet.
It's not possible for a first-term senator to become president, right?
Oh yeah. That we knew that. Given that there are no obvious choices in the Republican Party, it is a wide open field, and Senator Paul has a stake in the ground for a significant chunk of the party. He is broadening the base. He is coming up with very creative positions. He is open to radical changes in technology and structure and taxes. And he is creating policies that says, for instance, I want to be careful not to put words in his mouth, but on social policies, he'll say, I don't believe that way personally, but I think that's a state's decision to make, and that resonates with young people.
Yeah.
They don't want the federal government in their home, in their house, in their life, poking around. And if you say, hey, that's a state issue, and you guys get to do what you want to do, I think as I was arguing with Newt Gingrich a few years ago, the Republican Party does not need to become more conservative. It needs to become more libertarian. We need to be the party of freedom and letting people live their lives.
John, besides Barnes & Noble, where's the best place people can find your work?
On the internet, just Google John Mauldin.
All right. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.